Dan Herman. It has been suggested that if passed, that a portion of the sales tax for economic development be used to reduce the city's indebtedness. Do you think that's a good idea? Why or why not?
I think I'm the only one on record that would like to see that the economic development sales tax half-cent rescinded or just sunset. Because 9 years ago, when it was first voted on by the voters here, they had no idea how wildly successful it was going to be. Now we have 4 jet flights in and out of Manhattan a day. We have InBath coming in here. And you could have never guessed that in your wildest imagination we'd have all that success. But in the economic times that we're in right now, the citizens on the east half of Manhattan saying there's 3 things important to us. Taxes, taxes, and more taxes. Why don't we do something innovative like reduce the sales tax by ½ cent? Over in Junction City, they voted and their sales tax is 9 cents on the dollar over in Junction City. The Ford dealer over there said he has not sold 1 new vehicle in 2 months. January, February, he did not sell 1 new vehicle because the sales tax went up to 9 cents on the dollar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Rich Jankovich.
Just to make sure it was whether we want to let it sunset or continue.
No, actually, if the new sales tax gets passed, if it's put before the voters and passed, do you think it would be a good idea to use a portion of those funds to reduce the city's indebtedness?
I think it's an interesting question. We sat yesterday at the Eggs and Issues listening to Richard Carlson talk about how the state is now looking at doing something very similar to that with our state tax money and putting a fund together to encourage new employment growth, which is specifically to attract new businesses. And ironically, if I heard it correctly, it was really looking at the Kansas City metro area on the Kansas side, but maybe bleeding out into the rest of the state. So as we think about what the state's looking at to try and stimulate employment, we're kind of talking about taking away from that. However, it's important to note, though, that some of that money goes to the county for roads and bridges. Other money comes to us for the economic development of our community. I think if we have excesses and we have no other use, I don't have a problem with reducing debt that way. But the debt that we want to reduce may have penalties for reducing early, which may create other issues as we look at that. So it's a very tricky thing, but I don't think we should just use it for one purpose. We have to be very broad-minded in how we use that for the best purpose we can.
Thank you, Mr. Jankovich. Wynn Butler.
Well, I've been an advocate. I've said from the beginning when I started running that we should take this economic development tax and we need to continue with it. It's an existing tax. The nice part about it is the economic engine that economic development built, which is all those buildings down there, are going to bring in people that are going to purchase goods and services in Manhattan, and they will pay that tax. It will not just be the property owners that will pay that tax. We have a huge debt caused by economic development. One way to mitigate it is to take those tax dollars and pay it down. And so we need to have flexibility. That money could also be used to subsidize current businesses instead of bringing in new ones. Last week at the meeting at the commission, the study session, there was discussion to spend $2.8 million renovating Points Avenue area to support existing businesses. That would be a good use for economic development dollars instead of bringing in more. So flexibility is what's needed. If this passes sunset, what will happen? Your property taxes are going to go up significantly. We need these dollars in order to drive down the interest payments and the overall debt over the next 3-4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. John Mata.
In a word, yes, I agree it should be able to also use for debt reduction. Wynn's been the one who's been advocating to use it for debt reduction. I've been the one advocating to use it for infrastructure that goes along with growth that happens. Either way you look at it, it's kind of the same thing. And if you spend it for the new infrastructure, you don't run into the issues that Rich brought up about any prepayment penalties or anything like that. I just want to expand on that points example. That proposal there had, 1/3 being paid by the merchants there, a benefit district type of thing, and then the other 2/3 would be general obligation bonds. So general obligation bonds means your property taxes go up. Okay, now that in my mind, is a, economic development initiative. So I think we should be able to use those funds to fund that versus raising the property taxes. I know there's some in the business community that don't like that. They argue it all has to go to the businesses. And my response to them has been, that only passed by 80 votes last time. And I don't think citizens will stand for seeing million-dollar checks given to developers and new businesses as their property tax rise, because those cause the need for some extra infrastructure and development. So I think we have to have both of that within the language.
Thank you, Mr. Mata. Phil Anderson.
The half-cent sales tax will be reviewed again in 2012 by the City Commission. And it's a complicated issue. It's an issue that has a lot of people talking about whether or not they support it or they don't support it. And the Commission will decide how that wording actually goes to the taxpayers for their decision, whether or not we'll continue it or whether we will stop it, we will curtail it. Now, if you wanted to continue it, you could continue the current strategy, which is attempting to develop more jobs, bring industries in that promote job growth. Or you could go the other way and you could say, well, maybe what we should do is make our community more attractive by developing maybe public transportation, quality of life, that sort of thing. Or you could decide, if it passed, to put the whole thing towards debt reduction, if we thought that was necessary. Now, somebody mentioned that downtown redevelopment was costing a lot of money, and that's in the purple here in the chart. The sales tax from the downtown North End redevelopment are currently paying back 1.3 times the amount that it's taking to fund those bonds. It's paying for itself. It's doing very well.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. That concludes the question.